Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, where we look at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hi, and welcome back to Modern Musings. I am your hostess, Cindy Murray, and I am here with my co-hosts, Kristen Blakely and Amber Jones.
Hello.
Hi.
And this week, I'm tackling another kind of, I don't want to say tough because it's not really tough, but it's a thoughtful topic about asking for help and why is it so hard. I don't have any answers to this. I don't have any research to go with this. I just know that a lot of us struggle with asking people for help, and of all kinds, monetary, physical, emotional, whatever. And we have hard times with that. And then sometimes when we ask for help, we don't get the help we need. So I want to kind of pose that question to you guys. Have there been times in your life where you were afraid to ask for help? Or afraid or didn't want to ask for help, even though you really needed it?
That's funny.
And I know the answer to this because I can name certain circumstances, but I want you...
Literally every situation.
It's funny because I literally feed off of helping other people. I find it so easy to I don't know. I get hook, line, and sinkered into it.
Right.
I'm in a helping job.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I'm going to another helping job.
Being in leadership, I'm right there, rescue 911.
Right.
I noticed that about myself. I will bend over backwards to help other people, especially in my role, even people that don't even
not help
want the
yourself.
help.
But you don't help yourself.
But
Or you don't get
asking
for
for help myself, it feels impossible.
Right.
It does.
It feels like anxiety, choking, just I don't know.
Hurts my pride.
I feel
Right.
like I was raised by two very proud women that didn't ask people for help.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom raised me to get in there and
Put
do
on
it
your
myself.
big girl panties and get it done.
Yeah, and this was a woman that I saw, leap into a fight at my school, get out of her car, get out of the car line and leap into a fight and pull kids off of each other, and I've always carried that with me because I literally did that the other day at my work.
Mm-hmm.
I got in between a fight with 3 kids to pull 2 girls off of each other.
Right.
So it's just one of those things, and that kind of
But you're the most
personifies-
unconfrontational person.
Right.
I know, that's so funny. And it's I'm always I feel like sometimes, at least on my floor, I'm one of the first ones on the scene to jump in.
Right.
And, my boss is you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to jump in. And it's just well, what are you supposed to do? Watch two
Just watch 'em
kids
beat the
hurt
crap
each
out of
other?
each other. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a liability. It's a legal thing. It's people can get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I can get hurt.
You
but
can get sued for being in the middle
Yeah,
of
I
it.
can
right?
get sued. But, it's just if it's especially happening between 2 kids that I love, 2 of my kids, because they're all my kids.
Yeah.
I'm just going to...
But why do you think it's hard for you to ask for help?
I don't know. It's a mentality of I'm a boss. I can get it done.
Okay.
I don't need help. I can get it done. Nobody's gonna do it like I can do it. And it really falls
that's the
down to my
perfectionist kinda
ego
thing.
and
Yeah.
my perfectionism.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been working on in therapy. And it's so funny because I never thought of it this way, but my therapist actually pointed it out to me. She goes, it's your perfectionism. When I was talking about something, I'm what?
I saw that first, right off the bat. Yeah.
Like, I'm like, what? I'm not a perfectionist. Look at me. I look like a slob.
That's
Well,
not. I told you that's not what perfectionism
yes,
is.
I
though.
know. It's not really. It,
Perfectionism doesn't mean you're perfect.
Yeah, I know, but and it's like, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm not a perfectionist because I'm not perfect. But like everything, and this is something that I got like caught up on when I was planning my wedding, was my perfectionism, and I like beat myself up over it. And
that is perfectionism. If you're beating yourself up because it's not working the way you want it to, that's perfectionism. Yes.
And I was very humbled when, like, because, I can't ask people for help, but I was very humbled when people actually stepped up to help me. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I don't deserve it. Why would people want to help me? I don't deserve help.
Okay.
And
I want to stop you at that I don't deserve thought. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing why people don't ask for help.
Yeah.
The perfectionism, the ego, and the fact that they don't think that they deserve help, or that they don't think that if they ask, people will give them help.
Yeah.
So they're afraid.
They're afraid to confront that. They're hiding from that rejection of people not. Yeah.
They don't want to be rejected.
Right. And I think I agree to that to a great percentage, because I think a lot of times people they think to themselves, if I have all this capacity to help other people so much, then why am I so incapable of taking care of my own crap?
That's what happens to competent people. Competent people who are often helping other people feel that way. They go, I should be able to handle this.
I should be able to handle this.
Should be.
Why can't? So I'm not going to ask for help. I should be able to do this.
That's
it actually creates an identity like loop.
Yeah.
Or a trap, because you say, if I'm the one who helps everyone, who will help me?
Right. What about you, Kristen? What about your experience?
That one, obviously, because then it bounces back to me about self-shaming loop, right?
Right.
It's a shame loop, right? So I guess that's why I say like my pride, because then I'm like, I'm failure. And then I start going
asking
into
for help means you're a failure.
Shame loops that I can't get out of it. Like I said, it's a trap, because as soon as I start asking for help, then that's end. Like, I have failed, right? And so, the other part is I don't want to burden anyone. I think that was one thing I remembered being in like high school and stuff, and like I needed something for school. I always would just pretend like I didn't need it and just throw the paper away, because I didn't want to ask for, the money for the yearbook or whatever, because it was a burden.
Yes. And it wasn't.
It wasn't, but because I hear my
perception,
parents talking, after I've already gone to bed, about how they're going to pay the bills, as a child, not knowing like what that conversation, like they were doing it, right?
It's tough.
I perceived it as, they're struggling because they have to talk about it. Because I didn't hear other people talking. Like, I didn't hear my grandparents talking about bills.
Right.
So
but you weren't there when they were
I
talking
was
about
exactly,
bills.
but that's the way your brain works.
I know. When you're a kid, you don't get the whole picture. Yeah.
And so I went, I don't want to burden my parents, so I'm not going to ask for, permission to go on a field trip, because I don't want to bother them. And that's like an empathy thing, because I know what it feels like to be bothered or obstructed or annoyed, so I don't want to bother people. Right. Like, kind of like Amber said, she felt humbled at her wedding because, people were pitching in, and you were probably like, that's a lot of money.
People
I don't deserve that,
I didn't even like know, like Noni's mom came and helped everybody with their
dressed.
dresses.
Yeah.
And Noni stepped up. She, works for a funeral home, so she puts makeup on corpses. You know, she showed up and was putting makeup on everybody, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And, like, I didn't even think about
And
that, like, having, like, a makeup artist.
And
you
those
know,
those things are part of their love language. You know, that helping is a love language. It's a way of showing, you know, when people stepped up to you for you at your wedding to do all these things, cleaning up afterwards, setting up. How
Yeah,
many
you
people
know
came
what?
early
Like,
to do the
everybody, like,
decorations?
Jason's whole family stayed and helped
Help
clean
clean
up.
and all these people
So
were
Jason
doing
and
the
I could leave.
Yeah, and it's like that is a display of their love and acceptance of you, and we often don't realize it's there, you know, and we are actually, in not asking people to help us, we're actually denying them that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So we're denying people the opportunity to step up and show how much.
Oh, burn. That's so crazy because it feels so like hurtful when you try to offer someone help and then they don't accept it.
Right.
That makes so much sense. And then I'm also like not asking for help because I don't want to burden people.
It's
but
their
literally,
ego,
I
like,
help people
biting back
because I
at
love
you.
them.
Right. And they're offering to help you because they love you.
And why am I rejecting people's love?
Right.
That's crazy.
I know it is crazy. So it's hard. It's hard. And I've run across this a lot. And this is one of the things I've learned through my grief processing and stuff, was, you know, allowing people to help you. And in the early days of my widowhood, that was something I really focused on, was that if someone offered to help, I tried to find a way to accept that help. And thus we had, I mean, God, how much food did we have in this house for the longest time? I mean, we were eating leftovers that we had frozen because we couldn't eat them all at the same time, you know, for months and months later. And it was probably a whole year before I had to go buy paper towels again, you know? So, you know, so it was crazy. But then we also get to the point where, like, a lot of times people rush in to help in your emergent need. Like, right when my husband died, people were like, can I come over? Can I clean the house? Can I cook? Can I bake? Can I do this for you? And then everybody disappears. And you're in this place where, and this happens to a lot of widows, you need help and there is no help. You know, you need somebody to, you know, go stack all the wood or whatever, or, you know, do stuff in the yard or fix something that's broken, and you're not physically capable of doing it, and you ask for help, or either you don't ask for help because you're afraid to ask for help, or you do ask for help and nobody comes forward. And I'm trying to figure out the solution to that problem too, because there's been a lot of times for me, and I'm sure there's been times for you too, where you did ask for help and nobody stepped up.
Literally every day at work when I ask to go to the bathroom and nobody shows up.
So what is the answer to that? You know, how do we cope with that?
Pee myself.
We know why we're not asking for help. I mean, you know, once you realize why you're not asking for help, if you need help, you can sit and go, why am I afraid to ask for help? And you can figure it out. I mean, we just listed off a whole host of reasons.
And I'm sure there's others too.
Oh, I'm sure there's tons of them, and you can figure those out.
Yeah.
But then
fear of judgment.
Right. But once you get to that point and you're ready to ask for help, what do you do if no one is willing to help?
That's why you're independent and you do it yourself. I get that.
I mean, there's a lot of us who do.
Some people get that way because they've asked for help.
And nobody has
that was
stepped
actually
up.
one
They've
of my
actually
other
had
reasons.
nobody.
Sometimes for me, it's harder to articulate what I need when I could just do it myself.
Right.
Because, and I think you've said this one time, like, I need something very specifically done. And maybe that's more on the perfectionist side, but like, if I have to show someone what it is I need and how I need it, that might take longer than just getting whatever done myself. And yeah, so maybe some other pots will fall off the back of the stove, but at least I know that, yeah, I needed help, but I got it done.
Well, I was just thinking that, like, sometimes it's because Kristen was talking about, like, doing things by herself because she had, like, a specific thing that she needed done.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, I was thinking about, like, after my divorce, and, there were, like, specific things that I needed done that I wish that I'd had help with, but I had to do, but I didn't have to. I could have called Kristen and been like, hey, come over here. I bought a sander. Come help me sand my dresser so the drawers will actually come out. My antique dresser. I could have called Kristen, but I didn't. I went and I bought a sander myself. I didn't even ask around to see if any of y'all had a sander. I just went out and I'm like, I'm going to buy this sander and take these drawers out and go out on my balcony and sand all this stuff. And I could have asked either one of y'all, and y'all probably would have been like,
and I have a sander.
Let's make a day and have a sander. But I was too prideful, too independent, quote unquote independent, too hurt after my divorce to ask anybody for anything like that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes too we're also just so hyper focused on the outcome that stepping away to ask for help takes time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, kind of going back to like what I was saying, like you said, you had an outcome and you knew what you wanted, and it's faster to buy a sander and just do it yourself
then wait for your friends to be able to be available.
Exactly.
Yeah, like ask for availability, like, we got to schedule this.
I think
like
part
2
of that
weeks
is
from...
that fear of rejection too, because what if they don't have time for that or whatever, I think I have, I have a lot of that because, like Kristen mentioned, sometimes people have asked. It's a learned behavior. You take pride in the fact that you are independent because you were taught, you were raised to be independent and not need help because the people in your life did not want to help you to start with. And they didn't want you to take up their time or space or whatever. And so you learn this independence, and there's like an amount of shame. Oh, I must not be very independent if I'm having to ask for help.
Or I've been independent all my life, so I must be failing at it now because I need help. Yeah.
And it's there are things, in your life that necessitate getting help,
Oh yeah, like we know, you know
a
your
divorce,
limitations.
moving out, things like that, getting married.
You can't do your own plumbing. I mean, some people can, but like
raise your hand if you've put together IKEA furniture that says 2-man job, but you were like, I don't need 2 people.
It wasn't that I said I don't need 2 people. It was that I didn't have 2 people. Yeah.
I just wanted to get it done, and I was like, I can be 2 people.
Like why
3 of us. There's 3 of us here.
Yeah.
Well, and Ashley's in the other room. She would have raised her hands too because she did also. While I watched. It was a 2-man job, and I watched.
Nice.
But it was like
she did a great job.
When I moved out of my house, I know Kristen did come over. Her and Travis came over and helped me. And stuff when I was moving out of my house after my divorce and into my apartment. I know, like, I didn't ask them, but my cousins offered to come help me move. But I was like, well, I'm going to take some of the burden off of them and like move a bunch of these boxes by myself. So I spent countless trips. I pack up my grandma's car and I spent countless trips of the smaller boxes moving back and forth. That way we could put everything in just one trailer and not have to make multiple trips.
Right.
But, like, while I did accept their help. I also stubbornly
you set some boundaries on it where you still felt independent.
I stubbornly drove back and forth.
You know, it's interesting too, because I was talking to my husband about this recently, because I struggle with, believe it or not, speaking my mind, like how I really feel. And
unless you're pissed off.
Right. And that's because at that point I have just bottled it up, and I have like fermented it until it's fizzy, right? So, you know, I have somewhere in my mind like placed value on people, their generosity. We'll just say generosity, whatever that may be, like helping with something. When it comes to them genuinely offering their help versus me asking them for help, I feel like it's better when they offer it without me asking.
Right.
So even when Amber was talking about her family offering to help, I was like, oh, well, that's easier to accept than asking for help. Because when someone offers it, it's like, oh, how thoughtful of you. I really appreciate that. Why, yes, I would accept your help. I'm like, yes, I'll take your help.
We assume that if you're having to ask for help,
that they're doing it with conditions.
Right.
And
that's just not necessarily true.
Exactly. But there's something in my mind that says that if I have to ask for something, they're only doing it because they're obligated.
Right. And this happens in marriages a lot too.
That's what I'm talking about in a marriage.
In a marriage, a lot of times, a partner will not speak their mind because they want their partner to be a mind reader.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I have to ask for this, then he doesn't really know me, or he doesn't really know what I need, or he'll only do it because I asked for it, not because he really wanted to do it for me.
That's right there.
And it's that. And we do that all through our lives. We really do.
Yeah.
And it's not really necessarily the case, because we are not mind readers. We don't automatically know what someone needs.
Yeah.
When they need help. We don't even know that they need help sometimes if they haven't spoken that to us. And so if you ask for someone to help you, it is not an inauthentic offer of help for them to accept and offer that help.
Does
that make sense?
Just doing it because they're obligated to it.
And we'll actually, I think we're going to talk about this on the next episode, how to say no or yes, and mean it, without any guilt. But
ooh, nice.
Yeah, I know. I think it's going to be a great topic. I love that you brought that one up, Amber. And but right now we're talking about,
coming from someone who can't say no.
All three of us, I'm sure. We've we're looking at why it's hard to ask, and sometimes why it's hard to accept help.
Yeah.
And I want to know from you guys, has there been, I know we've talked about there's been times when it's hard to ask for help. Can you tell us some of the consequences, or one of the consequences, or an example of a time when you didn't ask for help and you should have?
Oh, I'm not going to go into details, but mine always end up with something legal. I'll just leave it at that.
Mine always wind up money, but
yeah, it's always something money. And I think, and literally it goes back to, it has to be something with, me growing up. I must have perceived something that, money is exchanged and there's obligations and emotions involved. And, because I'm seeing like the empathy part of me going, oh, I don't want to make other people uncomfortable. I don't want to take up too much space. I don't want people to feel obligated to do those things. Like, you're my mom. Of course you were going to buy my yearbook for me. You probably would have been happy to, but I would have,
I wish we had them.
I would take my toys and sell them to kids at school and then buy my yearbook with the money I made.
She did that all the time.
I did that all the time because to me, like, that was
You took
I
pride in that,
carried the
though.
burden
Yeah.
of whatever it was that I wanted. Like, I didn't want someone else to be burdened. And why do I feel like I'm a burden? That's the question.
That's
It's
your
like,
big
it's
question,
really not
yeah.
about help, but why do I feel like I'm a burden?
Right.
And is that why I'm always trying to help people, to prove that I'm not a burden and I'm useful?
You know what? You hit the nail on the head right there with that one, because I do that also. I'm always trying to prove that I am not a burden to people, even now as an adult, as a senior widow. I am always trying to not be a burden to my children, because my mother became a burden to me in ways, because of her dementia and her inability to carry for herself. Not that she was a burden, but
She has obligations.
she was an obligation I had to take care of, and I don't regret that. Absolutely, I would wish it was different. I would love for my mother to have had her cognizance for her entire life and die peacefully in her sleep at the age of 100. That's what we all want. But the reality of it is that my mother had dementia, and she came to live with me at a time that was a deep struggle for us because of COVID and all that stuff. And then I don't want to be that kind of burden on my children, either for money or for help, or any of the other things that I had to provide for my mother. So there's that. I also, was taught from an early age that I was a burden, because my parents treated our family, the children, my siblings and I, as though we were a burden on their life. And, I'm sure I've misinterpreted some of those things, because kids do. But at the same time, I know the facts of some of the things that happened, and those are pretty fair signs that they felt burdened by us. And so I learned to be independent at a very young age.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I buy into that. I get that. And there are, my things always have to do with money, I think, because for me, being in control of your money is a sign of being self-sufficient and being independent. And if you can't control your money, then you're
out of control in everything.
Everything, right? So, and which was another example that my parents set for me. And so usually if I get myself into trouble, it's over money. And I'll be honest, I'll give a flat out example of one time. We had this really old air conditioner in this house. It was the original air conditioner that this house was built with. It was a 2-ton unit, and this was a 2,100 square foot house, and there was only the one condenser unit, so it was too small for the house to start with. And I don't know how many Sears it was back. This house was built in 83, and it had not been replaced, and we moved in 2004. So it was almost 20 years old when we moved in, and it was not very efficient. And one summer we had record high heat waves, and that air conditioner could not keep this house cool. And it was running constantly 24/7. It never shut off. In fact, the only time it shut off was when it froze, and I had to go thaw it out, and start it up again. And my electric bill was like $500 one month. And I couldn't pay the whole thing or whatever. And then the next month it was another $500, and I couldn't pay the whole thing. And it got to the point where I owed the electric company $800, and I didn't have the money to pay it. And I didn't want to go to my husband and explain to him that I hadn't been paying the whole electric bill. This might remind you of someone we know who used to own a business that failed. And so I had to ask a friend of mine for a loan, and it was the most embarrassing thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. And I cried through the whole conversation. And in retrospect, I think it changed our relationship, but I borrowed that money from the friend and I paid it off and I learned my lesson and I never did it again. I always came forward, as soon as it was getting behind, but it was that, to be able to say to somebody, I don't have enough money to pay my electric bill, and be a 40 or 50-year-old, I don't know how old I was at the time, old woman.
I was 20.
Yeah.
Something, grown kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
you're like,
what the heck,
Yeah.
And it was really embarrassing, and it was everything. It was all I could do to get through that question of asking for that loan, and I did it, and I don't think my husband ever knew about it, but because all I needed was enough to get through until the next payday where I could take care of stuff.
And what's crazy is that you probably shouldn't have even had to get to that point where you had to talk to your friend. I mean, you obviously would have had to borrow from your friend because you guys were a single income household.
Right.
But the fact that you couldn't even talk to your husband about the first time you couldn't pay the bill.
Right.
The fact that you guys weren't on the same page to begin with is the start of that.
Very telling.
It's very telling.
Yeah.
I was like, why are you even worried about telling your friend? I'm like worried about the fact that, you're having to be the man wearing the pants. Not trying to be like gender here, but I'm just saying you had to put your big girl panties on.
Right. I was the one in charge. I was the one in charge of the bills, and he was totally hands off.
Yeah, and that's not fair.
No, and we've talked about that in other podcasts too, because
but that's your first place to go for help.
Right, it should have been.
Yeah.
But we had this understanding between us that he wasn't going to touch the bills. And he earned the money and I took care of spending it.
Right. That's your first misconception of what help is like, because you guys do that together, you help each other.
Right. And I wanted that, and that was a thing that took me a long time to get into his head.
Yeah.
Because he did, and we've talked about this, he would always say, well, how can two people pay the bills? It only takes one to write the check. And I said, no, it's this decision-making part of it that is the important thing. The budgeting and the deciding where the money goes. And that's where all the burden was. And we were in this constant struggle of who was going to be in control of that. And so he would get tired of the way I handled it. So he'd take all the checkbooks away and he would handle it. But he didn't like to pay bills on the day he got paid because it was very stressful for him to see all the money.
Sure is. Come in and go out.
At the same time. So he wouldn't pay things until they were late, and then we were accruing all these late fees, and so it was costing us more money. And my theory is you pay it, a cycle ahead of when it's due. So the bill comes in, you have time to pay it before your next payday. You pay it, and then the next set of bills comes in and you pay them, and so you're not paying it on your payday, you're paying it after your payday, but you're paying the bills that are due
a little early. Yeah.
And it works, but in this case there just wasn't enough money for it. But it took me a long time to get him to understand that the way that two people manage the finances or pay the bills is that you sit down every month together and you go through the budget, you go through the bills, you go through the money that you have, and you decide together how you're going to spend that money. And then that burden is no longer on just one of you. It's shared. And it is such a freeing thing. People do not understand how emotionally freeing it is to have that shared responsibility. I know a lot of people teach that the man should be in charge of the money. There's a lot of biblical teaching that goes into that. I had a friend who was really into that, and she only let her husband deal with the money, and it wound up costing them. I think they were on the border of bankruptcy, because he just wasn't.
As savvy.
He wasn't
Yeah.
as savvy. He wasn't competent
a team
at it.
effort.
Yeah. And it is a team effort. You have to call each other back on those, because if only one person is handling those bills, then that person's interests are the ones that have the most weight in what you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes those other interests get ignored.
Yeah.
Until the point where you owe $800 on the electric bill or whatever. So, that's a long way of going about it. But that's basically what happened. But, two people can pay the bills. Two people can carry that burden.
Mm-hmm.
But, I was left in a place where I had to ask somebody from the outside for the help. And, my husband may not have been able to help anyway. I mean, it may have wound up being one of those situations where we had to take a musical instrument down to the pawn shop and pawn it long enough to pay the bill and then get it back at the next paycheck kind of thing, because it was literally just I need this money right now and I'm not going to get that money until after it's due, so that's why, it happened, but it's really hard to do that. So, I know y'all have had that also before. Did it ever work out for you that you didn't ask for help and it was okay? And I'm not talking little things. I'm talking big things where it could have been really a disaster.
I think that all of the times where I have, and it's usually avoiding something that, needs my attention.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe I just needed moral support,
Yeah.
Like Amber, probably didn't need anyone to help her sand her dressers, but it would have been nice to have
It would have been fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moral support, right?
Right.
And so this is, comparing a little differently. Like, sometimes there's just things you have to do that cause a lot of anxiety. Like, I had to go for like a special thing at the gynecologist. Yuck, right? No one likes to go to that, but it was even like more than just, going to get a pap, right?
Right.
And I don't know. I just felt like I needed a friend with me.
Right.
So I asked my friend. Did my friend help me? Not physically. She wasn't in the room with me, but she was there.
She was moral support. Yeah.
And I'm glad.
Sometimes that's all you're asking for is moral support.
Right. And I'm glad that I chose that, because then I didn't go home alone afterwards. And, we went out and had lunch. And then it was just, a thing. And there have been times where I ended up doing something on my own, even though I put it off for like a really long time. And because I put it off, it made it worse. Like, things compound and get more expensive
like
and
the
more problematic.
Bill?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And, I finally bit the bullet and did the thing, and even all by myself. And I realized afterwards, wow, that was actually not as hard as I thought it was going to be.
Right.
And I think if I had probably just asked for moral support or help, it probably would have been like way less hard.
Right. Well, and I find that too, that like, I've mentioned many times the cleaning out my garage, a lot of that work got done because I actually bit the bullet and asked my neighbor for help, or I asked somebody for help, and she really wasn't that much help. It was more just the moral support in the company while I was doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
So, but I will say also that I asked other people for help and I didn't get that help.
Mm-hmm.
So that comes back to the thing. What do you do if you ask for help and you don't get the help you need?
Keep asking. You're asking the wrong people, or you just need to keep asking, right?
Right.
Like, obviously, like in your situation, you didn't ask my dad because you didn't want to burden him, and you knew that he wasn't going to be able to magically
Well,
create the results.
He was dead by. Oh, you're talking about the electric bill. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say he
So-
was gone by then, but
So, in that case, you chose not to ask him for help,
Right,
and you sought help elsewhere.
right.
So, one of the things that I do is just that unburdening of whatever it is. Like,
Sometimes that helps more than anything.
it's
right?
not me asking for help, but kind of like Amber was saying, like her cousin helped her out by just offering support
Mm-hmm.
and offering a service, right? An act of kindness.
Right.
She wasn't asking for their help, but when they offered it,
She
she
accepted.
took it.
You need to learn to accept it.
You
right.
need to learn to accept it, and sometimes help comes in weird forms that you weren't
Right.
expecting.
Right.
And, sometimes it doesn't come because you ask for it either. It comes when you're just talking to people too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I have this really big idea I want to do, and then blah, 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 blah. And then you have someone say, oh, you should blah, 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 blah. Right? I'm
Right,
sorry,
right.
but that's...
Yeah. No, I
blah,
get
blah,
it.
blah.
Yeah.
So,
Blah, 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 blah.
listening, I think also sometimes when we have like a problem, we get so caught up in what we're saying that we're not listening either.
Right.
So being open and listening to the person or people that you're sharing with, you may find the help that you need if you're
or
open
another
to listening.
solution or something.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah.
that's my idea too. Is just sometimes
you,
you got to
Amber?
ask the right person.
Do you have any tips for somebody who needs help and they've asked for help and they're not getting the help they need? And I'm just using this in the broadest terms. This could be to someone who is being abused and needs help out of an abusive situation. This could be someone who needs
For a student.
a student who needs help with their studies. It could be someone in the community who needs a leg up to get out of debt or get back into school or to change their career. There's so many times when we need help and we don't ask for it.
So, okay, so I'm going to start this by saying, like, help comes in many different ways.
Yes.
You don't have to bite the bullet or swallow your pride and physically pick up the phone or go over to someone's house and physically ask for help
Mm-hmm.
to get help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially if you're in situations that you mentioned or financial situations like y'all mentioned, and I have similar stories. I didn't really get to talk about mine, but that's fine.
You can.
I know. But like both of y'all, like both of your stories kind of, like I had similar situations where I've, money is involved or whatever. There are like help is out there. You don't have to physically bite the bullet to ask for it. There are many different, like, especially like if you're in an abusive situation, there are anonymous hotlines you can call. There are services that will get women out of the situations. You don't have to, ask your friend to come pick you up, or feel embarrassed by that. There are a lot of anonymous services out there that will help. And then same with financial situations. There are a lot of, I was in a similar situation like with, during COVID with the utilities, and there were two of us, but I was the only one working or bringing in money, and that, I couldn't pay. I didn't know it at the time, is that our house was leaking, like there was a leak, a really bad leak. And, the water bill was like insanely expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was in the area that I lived in anyway, so I just chalked it up for that. But, all of the utilities were together in one bill, and like it just kept adding up. Like I'd pay what I could on it, but it would just keep.
That's the way this was.
Yeah, it would just keep adding up. And what I ended up having to do, like I was too prideful to ask, because I was going through a thing with my family members at the time, because I was married to my ex-husband and they didn't like him, and my mom had recently died and everything like that, and I was like on the outs with my family members, and there was no way I was going to turn around and ask Kristen if I could borrow like $800, or anything like that. And I
I just thought of something like, what if you asked all your friends for like $10 though?
yeah, that's true.
Sometimes, like you said, the help doesn't always come.
And there are services like that, like GoFundMe or whatever.
Yeah. I know. I'm like, why are we so like set on this expectation of what the help
one
is?
person's gonna give us this $800?
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe I could have asked Kristen if I could borrow $100,
or maybe one friend knows how to contact the water department to get your bill set up where you make smaller payments on it or something, or there's so many different ways.
So at the time, and this is a really great charity organization, by the way, that at the time there was a place in Denton, and I believe it's still there. I'll have to look. It was called Interfaith Ministry.
I believe they are.
And they were helping people out during COVID. If you were in a certain financial situation and your utility bills were about to be cut off, they were helping people. And I had gotten so far behind on this utility bill that it was like over $1,000.
Yeah.
And I couldn't just... I kept paying it, and it was, they were, pushing back, cutting things off during COVID, and so I saw an ad, I heard word of mouth or saw an advertisement or something about help. They were offering help to community members, and so I bit the bullet. And it was all done online. I didn't have to go in person and face somebody.
Anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I bit the bullet and I reached out with an email and asked them, I told them my situation and asked them if they could help. And they ended up paying, it was almost close to $2,000 by the time. They ended up paying that bill for me. And
That's
that was
awesome.
like a big deal. So there are organizations out there that if you feel like your family's not going to help you or you're too afraid to ask your friends, there are organizations. And it's like when I tell my seniors, looking for money to pay for college or whatever, and they don't want to ask their family or take out a loan, that there are scholarships and organizations out there that they can reach out to and be like, hey, can you, help me? Can you consider me for your scholarship or consider me for your grant for college?
Yeah, which is something I didn't even know when, that's why I did not go to college right out of high school, even though I wanted to, because my parents believed that they had to pay for college. And they didn't know that there were things that would help people like me, because I was, poverty income levels. There was actually help out there that if you asked for it, but they didn't even, my dad was one of those people, he would lose his job and he was too proud to go get unemployment or food stamps or anything, and that happens to a lot of people too because of that embarrassment.
I've been there in my life too. I was working like it wasn't really it was full-time work, but I was barely not making any money right out of college. I was substitute teaching, and it was like I was barely scraping by.
Right.
Like, I got to the point where I was too prideful to ask my parents or my grandma for help, that I was selling off my stuff to pay my
Right.
bills.
Like Kristen making things and selling off
Yeah.
her stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So if I think I'm gathering from you, if the people don't help you, keep asking, keep looking for different solutions, keep
Yeah,
asking.
look for solutions.
Be willing to take something less than perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody
Cut down
says
your expectations.
right.
Don't be
Maybe
stuck on
somebody
the
isn't
outcome.
willing to help you clean out your whole garage, but maybe they'll come over and help you do one corner of it, or they'll come do 2 days worth of work
Right.
or whatever. 2 hours worth of work.
Or
on
there,
it,
there are also services that if you're wanting to throw your garage stuff away or
right.
get rid of it, you're not keeping it. There are services
That
that
will just come remove it.
that will come and remove it for free as long as they can keep your stuff and look for. And I actually did that with it wasn't free, but I did something similar with my dad's storage unit. I couldn't I had a hard time going through it by myself, and I didn't want to be a burden on my family or my friends in Vernon. And I was just like, I just need to rip the Band-Aid off and get rid of this unit. And I asked around, and a guy that was a friend of a friend, and I actually went to high school with him also, I knew him. He said, hey, if you donate your storage unit to the church, we will, we'll come and pick it up for like a couple of $100. And so.
Right. Well,
I did.
I did something similar when I moved my mom out of her house. She had this 2-story house full of stuff. And we went through it. We went through it pretty thoroughly. I took my niece and my husband with me, and we went through room by room, cupboard by cupboard, and searched for things that we felt like we needed to keep. And the rest of it, it would have taken me months to clean that stuff out, right?
Right.
But what I did was I called 1-800-JUNK or one of those kind of places. I can't remember who it was. I called them, and they, for a fee, it was like a certain amount of dollars per truckload. So they had a pickup truck with a flatbed, or not a flat, but with a trailer on the back of it. And so every truckload that they took was this cost. And with the caveat that they got to keep any of the major appliances, washer, dryer, stove, refrigerator, dishwasher, anything like that they were removing that was resaleable or fixable, or they could take to the recycler, right? So they just went through, and they had 2 trucks. They had one that was for stuff they were going to keep, and one that was stuff that was going to the dump. And they went through that house. It took them less than a day to go through most of the inside of the house. Now, there was another garage and other stuff too that they had to go through. So it took them 2 days total to clean the whole property. But they went through and just took all this stuff and sorted them into those 2 trucks. And I don't remember how many loads of stuff they took to the dump, but I didn't have to deal with it, and it was done. So that's always a good thing too. If you you just want to get rid of it or something like that, there's always an option. And so sometimes the asking for help, maybe just asking for ideas for other solutions, not specifically asking for, I need your time, I need you to come do this, I need your money, I need whatever. It might be just, I need
to bend your ear.
Yeah. I need to put some thoughts in your head and pick your brain and maybe come up with something, a solution or whatever. And you never know. Then that person may say, well, I have $800. I can loan you $800 till payday if you want. So maybe not specifically asking for the specific kind of help, but just asking for help in general. and not just targeting one person and then being disappointed because they can't help you right there in that moment, because maybe they don't have the $800, or maybe they're in the middle of a crisis and they don't have time to come help you work on the garage or take you to the doctor or whatever. Just and I think that's where it comes to also having more than just one friend or more than just one or two people that are in that inner circle of your life, having a more robust group of people that you can count on, because you never know who among those people is the one that will be gladly take you to the doctor, and sit in the waiting room while you're sitting there. I've asked for that too when I had breast cancer and Mark couldn't go with me to something. I asked one of my friends to go with me and drive me to the doctor because I had to take a Valium so that I could get into the MRI machine head first, and which is very hard for me because I'm claustrophobic. And so I asked a friend to take me there, and I'm glad I did, and because it would have been really traumatic for me if I hadn't. But so there's multiple ways of asking for help. There's multiple people that can help. Don't give up just because one person didn't, and keep asking that same person, because maybe they can't help you right now, but maybe they would be willing to help you on another day or at another time or in another way. So I think that kind of covers that topic. And we can talk about it some more, and we'll probably bring it up again next week when we talk about saying no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
talk about saying no
without guilt.
Yeah, without guilt.
Yeah. I think that's the important caveat right there, without guilt. So thanks for listening to us this week, and we hope you'll be back next week for saying no without guilt. And Amber will lead us in that, and I think it'll be a great conversation to have to go along with this one. And give us a shout back on Facebook or on our blogs, and spread the word, give us some likes, and rate us and all those kind of things, because we need all the help we can get. And we thank you for listening. We really appreciate those of you who've stayed with us, and we hope you'll come back again. And until next time,
bye.